All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Matt.
And I'm Steve.
And this is Marvel Reread Club. All right, everyone. Hi. Welcome back to Marvel Reread Club. We are still doing this. Steve, how are you?
I'm doing all right. It is Olympics time. And, in our household, if the Olympics are on, that's more or less what we're doing. So, that's pretty much what's been going on here. Still have a lot of snow on the ground, which is unusual for us, but that's about it.
Did the kids ever make it back to school?
I think that they are going back to school on like a delay at this point.
Yeah.
How about yourself?
Things are much better here than they were the last couple of times we spoke. My brother-in-law is a wizard. He came out and fixed my photos library. So my photos library is finally completely restored.
Wow.
After looking like I was going to lose it for a long time. And my computer is seemingly not dying anymore. I don't know. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But that's very good. And then I was saying to my wife, like, oh, and I don't know, did I ever actually announce on this podcast that I sold my entire comic book collection?
I think you announced that you were going to.
I announced I was going to. Well, first we had the two local comic book store guys, who were very much two local comic book store guys, came out and they went through my entire collection and they bid $600. They said, we're willing to pay you $600 for this collection. And I was very depressed. And I was like, oh my God, I've spent 50 years building this comic collection. It's just worth $600. But then I got some other comic book store guys who came out who made much better offers, but still not high enough for me. And then one of them was like, dude, what you want to do is Facebook Marketplace. Because Facebook Marketplace, you're going to get actual collectors who are going to be excited to own these books instead of jaded comic book store guys who are like, oh, am I going to be able to flip these things? And so I did. And I ended up selling the collection for $3,500 when the guy finally came out to buy it. And a guy just showed up, and it was like a chipper guy. And he just had a roll of $3,500 bills, which he handed over. And then he didn't inspect the comics. He went and just loaded all the comics into his minivan and drove away. And I'm like, why did I spend all this time preserving this collection if the person who gave me these $3,500 bills was not even going to look at the comics? The money is spent. We bought it on tickets to Europe for the summer.
Oh, great.
And then I was worried that then I was just going to have to spend all the money restoring my photos library, and it was all going to be for nothing. And but then my amazing brother-in-law restored the photos library for free. So everything is doing great. But then I was saying to Betsy, like, oh, I can't be depressed about my comics anymore. I can't be depressed about the photos library anymore. I don't know what there is to be depressed about. And then I'm like, oh, right.
Yeah, it's just block all that out.
Yeah. Suddenly it all came, everything else came rushing back once I was free to worry about it once again. Yes.
All right. So we are going to continue on with the comics of September 1968. Today we're going to be doing Fantastic Four, Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., Doctor Strange, and Submariner from that month.
Yes. Exciting.
Exciting indeed. So I'm going to go ahead and start out with Fantastic Four here. So it's Fantastic Four number 78. On the cover, it says The Thing No More, and you see floating heads of both The Thing and Ben Grimm with a bunch of Kirby crackle in the background. And you then see the Wizard flying towards us. So we're going to have the Wizard showing up in this issue.
Can we still call him the Wingless Wizard? I guess he hasn't been called the Wingless Wizard in years.
No, I think he actually refers to himself as the Wingless Wizard at one point in this issue, doesn't he?
Oh, good.
Oh, thank God. We can still call him the Wingless Wizard. All right. So in the beginning, The Thing No More, created and choreographed by Stan the Man Lee and Jack King Kirby. Extravagant embellishment, Jolton Joe Sinnott. Lethargic lettering, Swingin' Sammy Rosen. So the Fantastic Three are returning from the microverse here, excited to find that the world still exists. Which, once again, as you have been pointing out, why did they remain behind deliberately if they knew that the world might not exist when they get back? Johnny is super excited to go and see Crystal. Ben, first of all, Reed is super worried about Sue and wanting to know what's going on with the pregnancy. Johnny is excited to see Crystal and just to fly around New York and show off for a little bit. And Thing at first, he's excited to go see Alicia, but then he gets into one of his morose battles of depression where he's like, she's better off without me. She's probably forgotten all about me and I'm just a monster. So we see that the wizard has been released from prison. There's a Daily Bugle headline. So he's reading the newspaper that has his own headline, Wizard released from prison, vows vengeance on Fantastic Four.
I don't think this parole board understands how parole works. Like, what would you do if released, wizard? I vow vengeance. Okay, you're released. Rubber stamp.
Kerchunk. Yes, I don't believe in the mass incarceration state, but I mean, come on. All right, so Johnny and Ben have a little bit of an interaction, a little bit salty, and then they are going to head out. Ben has been away from the Baxter building long enough that he's forgotten that they've got these special high-tech belt buckle gizmos to summon the elevator. But we see those once again for the first time in a while. The two of them walk into a part of the Fantastic Four headquarters that has been wrecked, and they're cleaning it up when they are then called into the lab by Reed, and it's clear that he thinks he has a cure for Ben. Meanwhile, the wizard has built himself some new super-duper power gloves to go along with his flying discs.
Multi-powered Wonder Gloves.
Multi-powered Wonder... Thank you. I should not have given that name short shrift. Yes, multi-powered Wonder Gloves. And he is setting out to get his vengeance, which, of course, how could we ever have foreseen that? That's crazy. So they established that visiting hours for Sue are not up. But somehow Crystal's able to be there with her, even though visitors aren't allowed. And so, therefore, Reed can't get in to see Sue and Johnny can't get in to see Crystal, which seems like a little bit of a weird thing. But, I mean, it was the 60s. I don't know how these things worked.
Right.
I know that my dad was not our dad was not allowed into the hospital while I was being born. But by the time you were being born, apparently he was, I believe, if I remember that story. So I was born in 72. You were born in 75. So anyway, the experiment works. Ben turns back into Ben Grimm, and they are immediately attacked by the wizard. So they have a big old fight. We get an aside to the hospital where the doctors are a little bit worried about the pregnancy. They're seeing some odd readings about the baby's blood, and they are thinking that this might have something to do with superpowered pregnancy, but they don't know what it means.
Yes, I see here on page 11 that the wizard does say, surely you still remember me, your one-time antagonist, the wingless wizard. So he does tell the wingless wizard.
Yes. Back in the fight, Ben Grimm seems to forget for a minute that he's no longer superpowered. He's grabbing a big piece of metal equipment that he's going to use to bash the wizard with, but it won't move. He's like, I can't even budge it. My arms are way too... Wait. It's like, that's right. I'm human again. I can't do the superpowered things I used to do. The wizard throws Ben with such force that he's probably going to be killed when he hits a steel wall. But Reed uses his own body as an airbag, basically, and takes the brunt of it. Johnny is able to trap the wizard in a chemical centrifuge bath of some sort. So even though the wizard has a force field that's keeping air around him, he can't use his Wonder Gloves because he's just off kilter. Ben is starting to realize the implications of not having his superpowers anymore to go along with his being human now, and is starting to worry about this. The wizard is able to escape, and Ben is told by Reed that he might be able to turn him back into the Thing, but if he does, he can never become Ben Grimm again. That whatever this cure is that he had is not doable more than one time. And so he has a choice. Does he become the Thing once again and be part of the Fantastic Four, or does he remain Ben Grimm, where he can be a real, actual human man that could presumably love Alicia the way that he thinks she needs to be loved? So there we go. Next, Ben's choice. Overall, I found this to be a fun issue, fun and a bit weighty. It's got a little meat to it. And I'm excited to see where we go with all the different strands we've got here.
The soap opera stuff has some meat to it. The actual villain is not very meaty. The wizard, as I point out in my notes, wizard is back, not great villain. He can't win with the whole Frightful Four behind him. How can he do it solo? It'd be one thing if the whole Frightful Four showed up, that, they can usually get some good issues out of that. But solo wizard is pretty lame. But I like how he's so lame that Johnny is able to outsmart him single-handedly, And, he was originally a Johnny villain. He originally appeared in Johnny Storm's backup stories in Strange Tales. Or I shouldn't say backup stories. He originally appeared in Johnny Torch's stories in Strange Tales, and I'm glad that Johnny gets to defeat him for old time's sake. But he's a pretty underwhelming villain for this point in Fantastic Four history. It's amazing how long they're stretching out Sue's pregnancy here. It's sort of a shame that she gets sidelined in the book for so long, and then she's just going to be sidelined even more once she has the baby. It's just been the Fantastic Three now for several issues, and then we're going to bump back up to 4, but it's not going to be Sue. So we're going to see how that goes in a couple of issues. But this was a good issue for now because it has multi-powered Wonder Gloves. Okay.
Indeed.
Should we jump on to a shocking book, a shocking, disappointing, horrifying book, and yet not as bad as it could be? Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. number 4.
I think horrifying is a little strong there, but sure.
I am a Steranko addict, and suddenly having my Steranko yanked away is horrifying to me. So, we have Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., number 4, and good news, we have one of the most spectacular Steranko covers of all time. Much homaged, maybe his most homaged cover, which is saying a lot because he's had a lot of homaged covers. I guess maybe his most homaged cover, maybe his cover that we're going to see in a couple episodes for Incredible Hulk Annual number 1. But this would be a close second. Frequently, when they have any issue that shows their hero engaged in spy work, they will homage this cover. We have Nick Fury standing in front of us, pointing guns at us, and then behind him there is a black and white collage, some photos and some drawings showing. I guess it's mostly photo collage.
There's some drawing.
There's some drawing in there of various mod psychedelic effects and various models and sharpshooter. Someone riding a motorcycle. We got the Statue of Liberty. We've got various people pointing guns. And then we've got this model with a psychedelic effect emanating from her head. And it says S.H.I.E.L.D. Origin Issue. And I'm like, oh yeah, hell yeah, I am here for this. Steranko is going back and doing the origin. So every other book, I should say, that when they split off into their own book 4 months ago, every other book made sure to give us an origin in the first issue. Well, Steranko was having none of that. Presumably they told Steranko, go ahead and do S.H.I.E.L.D.'s origin again. But Steranko said, nope, I've got my own big plans. And he instead did a spectacular issue 1 that did not reveal the origin at all. And indeed, you don't really need to reveal the origin of S.H.I.E.L.D. Like, it's unlike the Hulk, where it's like, how on earth did this scientist become this big green guy? It's pretty obvious how Nick Fury became leader of S.H.I.E.L.D. But they have decided, nope, we're going to go back and do the origin, retell the events of Strange Tales number 135, which was the first issue of Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., back when he was the second feature in Strange Tales. And they're going to go back and do that. Well, but then we get to, shocker of all shockers, tragedy of all tragedies, Jim Steranko is gone. Now, the good news is he's back next issue. The bad news is that's it. He's just got one issue left in him, and that issue is not issue 4. It is issue 5. So this issue, we have an artist who I think we've seen a little bit of, right? Frank Springer?
I don't think we've seen him at all yet.
Okay.
What I associate Frank Springer with, actually, is the Dazzler comic from the 80s.
Yes.
That Frank Springer and Vince Colletta was the art team on a fair amount of that book. And it is really interesting to see him inking himself and his overall style in the 60s. And I don't know. I mean, I hear what you're saying about Steranko, but I found I was surprisingly happy with a lot of what the art did in here.
That is the twist I was headed towards. I have read this book a couple of times and never liked it at all because Steranko wasn't here. Reading it this time, I kind of like this book. I don't think that Springer is his own best inker. I think if, say, Sinnott had inked this issue, it would have been much better, or Giacoya or Atkins. And yeah, I've seen Springer's art, like you said, on Dazzler. I thought he had a good run on the Secret Six in Action Comics Weekly after he was gone off Dazzler. But I kind of like his art in this issue. It's in its own way, very psychedelic, very mod, and very sort of experimental. And he is clearly a fan of Steranko and is trying to channel his inner Steranko here. And it is shockingly good. It is shockingly bad in comparison to Steranko, but it is shockingly good as far as if we had to lose Steranko, this isn't so bad. So then, all right, so then we begin with this whole issue is just expanding the events of Strange Tales number 135 from 10 pages to 20 pages into a whole issue. So we begin with Nick Fury is killed by the agents of Hydra, and a pretty cool effect as he is shot and you can see his skeleton through his body and his clothes.
I will point out that when he is killed and you see his clothing, his skeleton through his clothes, the Hydra agent says, "It is finished. Nothing could have survived that blast of ionized alpha particles." And I will say this is one of those times when comic book science accidentally gets something right. Alpha particles are basically double positive helium ions that are moving at high speed. And if they hit your bare skin, they are indeed deadly. Although if they have to go through cloth or paper or something like that, they can't penetrate that. So you would have to hit him, directly on your bare skin. But I will say, accidentally correct comic book science.
Good for them. So then another Nick Fury is killed when he is run over in a hit and run by another Hydra agent. And he then shoots him for good measure. And we get the splash page finally. And now it begins. We don't get the splash page till page 3, which is rare from Marvel Comics. Stan Lee, editor, Roy Thomas, writer, Frank Springer, artist, Sam Rosen, letterer. Of course, they probably should be giving some credit here to Jack Kirby, who this whole issue is just a retelling of Jack Kirby and Stan Lee's original origin story from issue 135. We then get to yet another Nick Fury, who is seemingly killed by a giant armored goon, or maybe an armored robot. It's a little hard to tell. But then we then finally cut to the real Nick Fury. Turns out these were all life metal decoys, all of whom were assassinated. And then the real Nick Fury is thrown into a Porsche that soon turns into a flying Porsche. And takes off and it's like, "We got to take you to S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters." And he doesn't know what S.H.I.E.L.D. is. He's like, "What's S.H.I.E.L.D.?" Then a Blackbird, pretty well drawn and inked Blackbird by Frank Springer, flown by Hydra, starts flying overhead and shooting at them. And they start shooting back with all the weapons they have built into their Porsche. And then the wheels turn up and it starts, after they blow up the Blackbird, it starts flying away. I gotta say, the art in this book, really sort of shockingly good. On top of page 8, I really like Fury's face. For that matter, I like both their faces, the other faces in silhouette. And then we cut to something that we didn't get to see in that original issue. We're back with the original Hydra, with the original leader of Hydra, who's got his pet sort of giant dog, but it almost looks more like a hellhound or something.
I thought it was a panther.
Oh, is it a panther? Oh, okay.
I believe so.
All right, with his pet panther. And we get a bizarre sequence, which is the only sequence original to this issue, where he's like, "You failed to kill Nick Fury. I'm going to you're going to have to defend yourself when we put you on 2 giant H-shaped pendulums. You and another agent are each going to be swinging around on an H-shaped pendulum, but he will have a weapon and you won't. And he will be shooting at you and you will be, I guess, trying to blow on him or something." And
so was this sequence not in the original story?
In issue 135? I don't think so.
Okay.
Swinging around on giant H's?
I thought definitely, I don't know. I thought the thing where he had to fight the one who would replace him was in there, but I don't know. I'd have to, what's the number of the issue?
135. I've got Strange Tales 135 open. Let's see. Oh boy, this was a great issue. I love it. Stan Lee writer, Jack Kirby artist, inking by Dick Ayers. Let's see. Oh my God, it is in here. They are swinging around on giant H's. Okay. And then, yes, it's the same thing where it turns out that the winning agent was the first female agent of Hydra. Yes. First ever exalted female to attain so exalted a rank. Yes. Okay. Yeah.
All right. Although they keep on referring to the other agent who's fighting him as he, and he and him in here until they reveal that it's actually a woman. Instead of trying to avoid revealing that, they just basically lie about it.
Misgendering was not as much of an issue back then.
Right.
People didn't realize how disrespectful that was.
And is it just me, or does the woman's face look kind of Milk Kniffish?
Yeah, I like it. And really, really modern, cool, mod, psychedelic page layout on page 11, where it turns out that it was a woman Hydra agent with this very canted angle and these very wild panel borders. So then we get a brief flashback to Nick Fury's history in World War II. Then we get, once again, the events of 135, where they have brought him on board they somehow managed to get him on board the helicarrier without him realizing he is on a helicarrier. And they put him in a seat and are telling him, we want you to lead S.H.I.E.L.D. And he's not like, I'm not so sure about that. When suddenly he realizes that his seat is a bomb, he throws it out the window and suddenly discovers that it has gone out the window of a helicarrier that he is on, that he is shocked to be on. And it says at the bottom, footnote from Recap and Roy, frankly, bedazzled ones. We couldn't think of any better caption to accompany this magnificent illo than the one Smilin' Stan wrote way back in Strange Tales 135. So there it is, right down to the last whoom, W-H-O-O-M. I'm sorry, W-H-O-O-O-M. Let me try that again. W-H-O-O-O-M, the sound of the explosion. But then we get to see a bit more than we got to see in that issue in terms of Nick Fury actually finding the saboteur and beating him up, which we didn't get to see in that issue. Then we see Nick Fury realizing that, yes, I'm the only one who can do this. I should be head of S.H.I.E.L.D. And he signs up to do it and to fight Hydra. And then we see the head of Hydra vowing to destroy S.H.I.E.L.D. And that is the end of this flashback issue. And I like this issue. The art, if you want Stranko, it's shockingly bad. If you don't want Stranko, it's shockingly good. I really like the art in this issue. And, I forget, I think Springer does take over 2 issues from now once Stranko is gone. And I am looking forward to those issues much more than I was when I first discovered them. This issue is really unfair in that we get this absolutely all-time great Stranko cover that is such a tease. But if you're able to get over that tease, I like this issue. And it's a little disappointing that it's just so much for recap, so much for retread of Strange Tales 135. But, he's got his own book. It's been several years. It's time to do a new origin. I like it. What do you think of this issue, Steve?
Yeah, I was surprised by how much I enjoyed it. The art, as you said, it's not Steranko, but it is great in its own way. Yeah, I was very happy with what I got, much to my surprise. One thing I will point out is the SR-71 Blackbird that is attacking the Porsche is going really super slow. I think a Blackbird is mainly known for going like several times the speed of sound, and instead it's just sort of moving around like a biplane.
Yeah.
It's, on page 9, where we see the failed Hydra agent returning to HQ, one thing that we did not see in the original, from my memory, is we have 2 dudes in loincloths and masks banging on a gong.
Yeah, but wearing just shorty shorts and Hydra masks. Yes.
I was like, that's a little weird, but what you gonna do? Then later on in the book, when Nick Fury is agreeing to be the head of S.H.I.E.L.D., he says, "Look, Stark, let me ask you just one final question. Do these Hydra crumbs really have a chance to overthrow worldwide law and order? It seems that way, Colonel. Then it's them or us." Exactly. And I don't know, that exchange has jumped out at me for no particular reason.
Yeah.
So anyway, a surprisingly good issue once you see what the credits are.
Yes. I just went back and checked, and no, there weren't the gongers in the original issue. I don't know what gonger, I realize sounds repetitive. I don't know what a gonger is. I don't know what the proper name for a gonger is other than gonger.
Well,
okay.
All I know is they're getting it on.
Yes, bang gong. All right. So that was an interesting issue. So let's go ahead and jump back in with, as we almost always do, we tend to follow up Nick Fury with Doctor Strange because they used to have their own book and we still keep them together. Let's go and do Doctor Strange, Master of the Mystic Arts, number 172, I Dormammu. And we get another shocking art change to another artist. And once again, this artist will be taking over the book. But we have Doctor Strange, Master of the Mystic Arts, I, Dormammu.
Am I doing this issue?
Wait, are you?
Yeah, you just did S.H.I.E.L.D.
Oh, okay. You're doing this issue. Never mind. I just did S.H.I.E.L.D. Okay.
So, yes, Doctor Strange, Master of the Mystic Arts. We're moving on to this. The title on the cover is I, Dormammu, and we see Doctor Strange and Dormammu in combat. And this is clearly drawn by Gene Colan, who is going to be the new ongoing penciler of this book. And more importantly than that, we get the first time ever teamed together that I'm familiar with. Gene Colan, well, we'll read through the entire credits here. Another legend-laden landmark ripped untimely from the talented tentacles of Stan Lee editor, Roy Thomas writer, Gene Colan artist, inked by Tom Palmer, lettered by Ai Watanabe. So Gene Colan and Tom Palmer are going to be one of the great art teams.
Yes.
Going forward. Or I guess to say it more specifically, Tom Palmer is, I think, undisputably the greatest inker that Gene Colan is ever going to have. Yes. And this is our first time seeing that combo. And I don't think they've really found quite their entire chemistry yet, as came up when we had Jamal Igle on and we were talking about something else. It can take an inker a little bit to kind of find their footing with a new penciler. And I don't think this is, not that I'm saying this is bad in any way, I just don't think I'm seeing quite the magic that we're going to be getting going forward. But
well, I think this issue is great. I'm a big fan of this issue.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying that that I don't think that this yet would be something where it's like, this is one of the great art teams in Marvel.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's a great issue. But but I'm just very excited to see them finally put together.
Yeah. We had Tom Palmer originally first appear as a penciler in the last issue of Doctor Strange, and he did a shockingly good job. But then either, like you were saying, either because he was blowing his deadlines or he just didn't like penciling, or they were not suitably impressed by his penciling, even though I was, that they have moved him to inking, where he is going to stay. I'm not sure he ever pencils another issue. And he is going to quickly excel as the best inker that Gene Colan's ever had, and then they're going to have him also become one of the best inkers that John Buscema ever had. And he's going to end up inking both Doctor Strange over Colan and Avengers over Buscema and do just a bang-up job on both.
And he's also, I believe, going to be one of the best inkers that Neil Adams has, if I'm not mistaken, that they're going to do some great work together. So yes, Tom Palmer will become one of the absolute premier inkers at Marvel Comics, and it all begins right here. So a miniature Doctor Strange is fighting against Dormammu from last issue. We see the two female characters who are both being used as bait here, Clea and Victoria Bentley, who are trapped watching this fight. We end up getting Dormammu reminiscing about how he ended up in this particular dimension. So we go back to his fight with Eternity from the end of that first 12-issue storyline that was done by Steve Ditko.
This was in the epilogue to the 12-issue storyline. So this was essentially an issue 15 of the 12-issue storyline or something like that. But.
Okay. So longer than 12 issues, basically. So, yes, Dormammu was defeated by Eternity. It looked like Doctor Strange was in danger of being taken down as well, but the Ancient One extracts him from this apocalypse, basically. But Dormammu is sent to this other dimension that he doesn't know where he is. He can't get out, but he ends up defeating these first two demons that show up. And it turns out that these two demons were the ones who ruled this land. And so all the other demons were like, thank you for liberating us from them. You are now our master. And so he's like, oh, okay, well, okay, maybe I'm going to be doing okay in this dimension. This is things could be going worse. And then he finds that Clea is here. So essentially, when they originally sent Clea away for her own safety, it's like, we don't even know where it's going, but it has to be safer than here. And it turns out, no, it's the same place that Dormammu is going to be. And Dormammu was already, had it out for her. So
apparently the Ancient One only knows how to send people to one dimension. So first he banishes Dormammu to this dimension. Then he's like, now I've got to put Clea I have one goal: put Clea in someplace where she'll forever be safe from Dormammu. And instead, he sends her to the exact same place he sent Dormammu to, and now she is his captive again. So it's like, you suck, Ancient One. That was a really bad job that you did there.
Well, I did not get the impression that the Ancient One is who sent Dormammu here. I think that was some result of the fight with Eternity, but it seems that this is the realm of banishment of some sort. And so you're banished to some extra dimensional place. This is it. This is where you end up. Yeah. Dormammu has somehow sapped all of Doctor Strange's mystic power and ends up creating this creature that is here to guard over Doctor Strange and Victoria Bentley and Clea, and gives it a lot of mystic power. So the Doctor Strange realizes that he still has 2 mystic items that were not drained of power, that he was drained of his power, but the Eye of Agamotto and the Cloak of Levitation still both have their powers, and he can still use those. So he ends up using those to get himself free. He still doesn't have his magic power, though, and so he is at the mercy of this monster that has been left to guard them until he figures out that he can use the Eye of Agamotto to suck his powers back out of this demon. Apparently, when Dormammu created this thing, he created it basically from the mystic power that had been stolen from Doctor Strange. And Doctor Strange is able to figure this out and use the Eye of Agamotto to suck the power back out of the demon into himself.
Mm-hmm.
So, good. I know you always talk about you like it when a hero is clever in his way of getting out of a problem. That seems like it's a bit clever for him to figure that out, at least. What would you say?
I guess he's too reliant on the Eye of Agamotto, and it's every solution he comes up with, especially since Ditko has left the book, always involves the Eye of Agamotto. And like when Ditko was writing and drawing the book, there would be a lot of times when he's like, oh, the solution is to not use my magic powers and to do some sort of like thing a normal human would do in the time when it's least expected that I would do that. He hasn't done that in years. It's been years since he would really come up with truly clever outside the box solutions. Now every solution involves some use of the Eye of Agamotto, which the bad guys are always baffled that he would do that. They're like, oh my God, he used the Eye of Agamotto. That's the one thing I never thought he'd do. It's like, don't you read Doctor Strange comics? Come on.
Yes, I know what you're saying. There was one time in that same extended storyline when Doctor Strange is basically like, now it's time for me to use basically martial arts. It's like, I'm going to punch you upside the head. So Doctor Strange is clearly very much smitten with Clea and is paying all of his attention to her. Victoria Bentley goes off and cries quietly in a corner. Doctor Strange then sends both of the women back to Earth. But he is staying behind, presumably to fight Dormammu. Dormammu has at this point summoned Umar to him. Umar has been ruling over the Dark Dimension since Dormammu's been missing.
Umar, his sister.
Yes, Umar, Dormammu's sister, has been ruling over the Dark Dimension since Dormammu was banished. And he brings her there because he's thinking, oh, well, you are betraying me. You are trying to take over the Dark Dimension. She's like, no, I've just been ruling in your stead. I'm still loyal to you. So anyway, they're having some sibling rivalry going on there. But one way or the other, Dormammu and the demons are able to get something called the Doorway of the Dimensions. And this Doorway of the Dimensions is going to allow Dormammu and his army of demons to all come to Earth. And they arrive at Earth to Doctor Strange waiting for them. As Evil One, 'tis Doctor Strange who now throws down the gauntlet of challenge. Let Dormammu face me alone in combat, that naught save death may end. And let the fate of Earth itself hang in the balance. Next, battle. Yeah, overall, I am happy with the art. The storyline is, it's okay. It's good to get Dormammu back, I will say. Good to get Clea back as well. I will say on page 13, the demon that was created using Doctor Strange's power is saying to Doctor Strange, you have pronounced your own fate, doomed one. Here, in a world you never made, you shall nonetheless perish. Has that phrase come up yet earlier?
Yes, it has.
It has.
Yeah,
okay.
when the Hulk was banished to High Evolutionary's planet, there was a whole thing about the world a world he never made, and which I think we determined was from an A.E. Housman poem or something like that. We went ahead and did a whole research on it at the time.
Okay. All right. Yeah. But anyway, here it is again.
Yes.
Roy Thomas loves that one.
Yes, he does.
So what do you think?
I loved this issue. I think that the plot could not be more monumentous, that, you finally got his big villain Dormammu back. He's got both of the love interests held captive. He's about to invade the Earth. He's got Umar, who, was a very substantial villain in her own right, who is back sort of biding her time, feigning submission here, but she might try to preserve her power in some way. I thought that this was, and the big shock here is, yes, Tom Palmer's a great anchor, and we get to see that for the first time. But I think that Gene Colan, who was not someone who would occur to me as a potential penciler of this book, does a shockingly good job. I really like Colan's work. It's very different from Steve Ditko. It's very different from Ray Severin. It's very different from Dan Atkins, but it's much more sort of loosey-goosey out there pencils, as you would expect. But I think it's really dynamic. That's always been one of Colan's great strengths, is that he's a very dynamic penciler. And I think that I'm sort of shocked at how well that works in Doctor Strange's world, Doctor Strange and Dormammu's world, even though it looks totally different from Ditko. I was a big fan. What do you think of the art?
I loved the art in here. One of the things I just now was thinking about is, in our previous episode, we had talked about the Daredevil issue that Gene Colan had drawn and the crazy panel border layouts that he had used in there. They're just all diagonal and jagged and zigzag and strange. And here in Doctor Strange, you might expect to go a little crazy with the panel borders here as well, but we don't. We get some of Gene Colan's really more staid and steady than usual panel borders from him, which is an interesting choice. But yeah, the demons that are in this dimension, they're reminding me of someone in the 80s. And I want to almost say didn't Brett Blevins draw like a Magic miniseries or something like that?
I'm trying to think who these remind me of. There is a bit of Brett Blevins to it. I was always a big fan of Brett Blevins.
I had mixed feelings about him, but these look like the kinds of demons that would be in Belasco's world.
But no, I was a big fan of the art in this issue. I was a big fan of the story, having everybody back, having this huge confrontation. I'm just a huge fan of this issue of Doctor Strange.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay.
Well, I'm excited to see what comes next.
All right. I am too. All right. Let's go ahead and move on to a book that is not as good. Prince Namor the Submariner, number 5. Watch out for Tiger Shark. We've got an excellent John Buscema cover of this new villain, Tiger Shark, looming large over Dorma, and Submariner is swimming up to him. So we finally got Submariner and Dorma reunited. And I always like Tiger Shark. I've mentioned many times before on this podcast what a huge fan I am of the Avengers Under Siege storyline that Buscema and Tom Palmer did the art for and Roger Stern wrote in the late 80s. And Tiger Shark was a big part of that, so I have some affection for him left over from that. But I like Tiger Shark. I think he's an intimidating, scary villain. And so we're going to meet him in this issue. Let's go ahead and begin with Prince Namor the Submariner. Watch out for Tiger Shark. Stan Lee presents a masterwork of ever-mounting menace by Roy Thomas writer, John Buscema artist, inked by Frank Giacoia, lettered by Sam Rosen. I'm always a big fan of Giacoia's inks on John Buscema, and that continues in this issue. We begin with a tremendously lame beginning. Namor has just recently been fighting Captain Marvel over in Captain Marvel number 4, and now he's just a little woozy from the fight and has to go up on a beach to recuperate, and then suddenly he is attacked by a giant robot. Why is he attacked by a giant robot? Because he is Prince Namor the Submariner? No, apparently anybody on this beach would have been attacked by this giant robot. It is just sheer coincidence that our superhero has run into a supervillain with neither one seeking out the other one in any way, shape, or form. Never a fan of that. Have I made it clear in this podcast in our 150 episodes that I am never a fan of the issue beginning when the hero and villain just happen to run into each other? I am not. So then we have a standard superhero versus giant robot fight that goes on for a couple of pages. He is now knocked out entirely, and then he is taken captive by the supervillains. Like, did I just defeat a superhero accidentally? This is awesome. So then let me go ahead and take him prisoner, put him in a vest that saps him of his powers underneath a giant shark tank. Reminded of Austin Powers here with sharks with friggin' laser beams attached to their foreheads. And I realize it sounds like I was censoring myself there. I'm not. That's actually what it was. So then turns out that he is now the prisoner of a villain named Dr. Dorcas, which sounds a little dorky, but there you go.
It also reminds me of the James Lilacs thing on his website, the Dorcas collection.
Yes, that is true. Yes. Early days of the internet, James Lilacs was one of my favorite creators or archivists of silly stuff. And then there's a woman who is, I think, never named, who is taking care of Submariner, but Submariner is just, of course, being dickish to her. And so then it turns out that Dr. Dorcas has, well, he's showing off his amazing equipment and his assistant to his assistant Todd to Submariner. We'll find out what he intends to do with that.
That woman is Todd's sister.
Yes. So then, meanwhile, we cut to Dorma. Dorma finds out that she was essentially saved, that she and all the rest of Atlanteans were saved by Namor in the previous issue, but that then he didn't swim away. She doesn't realize that he was falsely told that she and everyone else had died. So then she's like, well, I got to go find him. I got to go track him down. And so this has happened in issue after issue where she's wanted to go get Namor, and Vashti has said, no, you can't. You've got to lead us. And this time she finally has had enough. And she's like, nope, I am leaving. I'm going to go do it. She runs past a giant squid. It's unclear if this is supposed to be the same giant squid that Dan Atkins drew into a previous issue. I say drew in quotes, copied from Hal Foster in a previous issue.
Well, I think that was an octopus and this is a squid.
Oh, okay. So then Namor, meanwhile, still in Dr. Dorcas's lair, finds out the whole story of the girl's brother, Todd Arliss, who was a champion Olympic diver and swimmer, I guess.
Yeah, seems a little bit unlikely that he would be both, but this is a comic book, so we'll take it.
Yes, Arliss sets new record in 100 meter. Hail Arliss as high dive champ. I'm not sure it's the job of a newspaper to tell us who to hail, but that's what the newspaper is saying. But then he rescues someone from drowning from a boat and ends up getting hit in the head. And it says Arliss never to swim again. It now says in the newspaper. So no longer hail him. They're saying stop hailing Arliss. He is never to swim again. And then travels the world looking for a cure and finally finds Dr. Dorcas, who swears he will come up with a way to make him a great swimmer again. It turns out his plan was to siphon shark juices and inject them into Arliss and make Arliss part shark. But then once they have Namor, they're like, okay, we'll just siphon Namor juices and inject those into you and make you part Namor. And he's like, great, that sounds a lot better than being part shark. But then Dr. Dorcas then, once Arliss is in the machine, seemingly changes his mind, going like, nope, I'm not going to make it part Namor. I'm going to make it part shark after all.
No, I think he does both. I think he's got some part of Namor's powers and the powers of a shark.
Yes. Unfortunately, it turns out he also has the fundamental weakness of a shark because he then turns into the tiger shark. He's now wearing a pretty cool orange and gray outfit, and he's got shark teeth, which are always very scary. That I am always a fan of his shark teeth. But then it turns out, and so he's super strong. He starts wrecking all the equipment. He beats up Dr. Dorcas. He beats up Namor. But then he realizes, I can't breathe out of the water anymore. I am not amphibian. I am someone who is unifibian, and I need to breathe in water. And which is always a mistake whenever they establish any character, whether it's Triton or Dorma for that matter, or any character who can only breathe in water. That always greatly limits the possibilities for this character. By the time we were growing up, Tiger Shark seemingly had cured himself of this because he could breathe in air just fine. It's not like in the Under Siege storyline that he kept having to go underwater or anything like that.
I think if I remember right from the official handbook of the Marvel Universe, that he had a costume that kept some kind of a layer of seawater against his skin.
That makes sense. So then, well, it doesn't make sense, but it makes comic book sense. So then Namor goes down, starts fighting him again. Tiger Shark defeats Namor, covers him in wreckage, and then drags Dorma away. Says, why is he dragging her away? You must come with me as the living symbol of my triumph. So he's dragging her away to be the living symbol of his triumph. That all who tread the wine dark depths, Roy Thomas always likes his literary references, shall know that a new day has dawned, the day of Tiger Shark. Next issue, Re-Enter Destiny. We're finally going to get back to the person who Namor has been supposedly trying to fight this whole time, Destiny. And that will be next issue. But as for this issue, it has one of the lamest beginnings of any Marvel comic I've ever read in terms of the hero and the villain just running into each other by sheer coincidence. But I do like Tiger Shark. I like Dr. Dorcas just fine. The art is just gorgeous in the issue, and we have a nice new villain for Namor. What did you think of the issue, Steve?
It was all right. Tiger Shark is okay. I'm not a huge fan. It's good that now Dorma and Submariner both know that the other one is alive and are in the same place.
Yes, that's nice. I'm tired of them. Yeah, it was really nice to have them back together.
Yes. One of the things I noticed about the art in this issue is I think that Giacoya may have been in a bit of a hurry, but I think that he is a talented enough inker that it doesn't jump out as rushed. But I noticed that a lot of the lines that are used, particularly outlines for figures, tend to be thin, deadweight lines, as though they were just drawn out with a pen without much thick to thin going on in there. Lines that go from thin to thick and back to thin are sometimes referred to as cursive lines in inking. And we don't really have nearly as many cursive lines for the figures here as one usually would have. So it strikes me that Giacoya may have been in a hurry, but kind of knew where to cut corners that wouldn't be as noticeable to someone who isn't attuned to these things. But overall, I like John Buscema's art as always. I like the mod dress that the woman is wearing throughout this thing. It's it looks like the the photo albums that our childhood photos are in. It has that sort of swirly psychedelic kind of look to it that looks very much like this woman's dress.
It's interesting. The first panel where we see the dress, she's telling Namor that he's a prisoner, and then he goes ahead and just utters a question mark with a big exploding speech balloon with a question mark on it. And the dress looks so mod and crazy. I wasn't sure that wasn't part of the dress, just to have a big question mark built into the dress. But then I realized, oh, no, that's not part of the dress. That was just his exclamation.
Right. Right. Anyway, Dr. Dorcas is kind of silly. Tiger Shark is okay. The robot fight at the beginning is definitely silly. I find it a little bit difficult to believe that they were able to actually keep Submariner in check long enough to siphon off some of his power. They've got some kind of electric shock vest that they've got on him that he can't remove or else it'll shock him. And Submariner is a powerful enough character that I'm like, I'm not buying that as being able to restrain him. Yeah. So I have a bit of a problem with that. But, overall, Tiger Shark is going to be an ongoing concern from this point on. And so we get introduced to him. And I'm not unhappy to see Dr. Dorcas possibly dead.
Yeah.
I'm guessing the name it sounds like it's a cross between dorsal and orca.
I guess.
I don't know. It sounds vaguely fish related, but not in a specific way that I can think of.
Let me Google the word Dorcas. Do you want Dorcas Meadows, Harry Potter character? No, I don't. Dorcas, also known as Tabitha, was a philanthropic early Christian disciple in Joppa. That's according to the AI. Dorcas is Greek and Tabitha is Aramaic. Both translate to gazelle. So Dorcas is Greek for gazelle. So that's why he's got all the powers of a gazelle. No. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's just, never mind.
But, right. Yeah, I pointed out in my notes, Roy Thomas is really writing a tremendous number of books at this point. I didn't count up how many books he wrote this month, but he wrote a ton, more than Stan. That may be why you've got this tremendously lame beginning to this issue. He just couldn't be bothered to come up with anything better. As I say in my notes, just runs into a robot that attacks him. Couldn't he have been investigating a disturbance or been led there by a signal, or Dr. Dorcas hunted him down? What a lame beginning.
I guess that Roy Thomas did write 3 of the 4 issues that we just talked about today. And that's just this selection of issues here. Yeah, I guess he really is moving in to fill Stan Lee's shoes to a large extent already at this point.
Yes. Overfilling his shoes, you might say. But although that sounds weird. Odd metaphor.
Thanks for making it weird, Matt.
Thanks for making it weird. All right. Anyway, Steve, I think that's it for these 4 issues. I think this will be a slim episode by the time we cut it down. But we read some good issues today. Really, we read some really quite good issues today. I would say this Namor was probably the weakest of them, but even this had fantastic, spectacular art. You can't complain about Kirby Sinnott, Fantastic Four, Colin Palmer, Doctor Strange, shockingly good Springer, Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., and really nice Buscema Giacoya art on Namor.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, great. So I guess that it is time for us to say goodbye for this week, and we will be back in your ears again a week from now.
Yes, indeed. All right, everyone. Goodbye. Take care.
All right. Yes. Take care and stay safe out there, everybody.
Okay. All right. Bye.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed it, we now have a Patreon where you can show your appreciation. If you've got a few bucks, head over to patreon.marvelrereadclub.com to support us. Also, you can still rate and review us at your podcatcher of choice, and that would be greatly appreciated as well. You can find us online at marvelrereadclub.com, as well as Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Threads. See you next time.